Hello all. I am Queen Yasheka of Although I was twice divorced, I remember when someone told me that I carried myself like a kept woman. Hello and welcome. My name is Yasheka, affectionately known as the Fairy Godmother, and you are watching Hood Parenting on YouTube. Listen, come on in here to the neighborhood while I continue to stumble over this voiceover as I make my way through these YouTube streets and continuing to. So yes, I remember the day that someone told me that I carry myself like as if I was a kept woman. And at first I was kind of taken back, but then as more and more I kept on thinking about it, I knew exactly what that meant. And when they say a kept woman, they understood that to be that I carry myself like a woman that was well taken care of, a woman that was well provided for, a woman that embraced all of the things to make sure that I had exactly what I needed in order to live what we call in today's terminology a soft life. Let's be clear, I knew exactly what they were talking about, but what I also knew was the way that they perceived me was not the way that I am. And let me explain myself. I didn't really understand it from a single person's perspective because I am a 53-year-old single woman, twice divorced. But the more and more I continued to date and the more and more I continued to be around other gentlemen, the more and more it was like they were waiting for me to drop the ball to ask for something, or for me to eventually reveal that I had some type of secret partner or some type of sugar daddy or somebody that was taking care of me or giving me a lifestyle that I can afford to sit back and quote unquote live this soft life or carry myself as if I am a kept woman when indeed I am a divorced woman, twice divorced to be exact. So this made me decide to go ahead and talk more about this. Let's be clear. I very well live a soft life. However, I've given that soft life to myself. My softness was self-created. I don't look like what I've been through, and that didn't happen by accident. I came from some very strong women that carried themselves, made sure that they took care of themselves, my mother and my grandmothers, and a lot of the women that I've seen in my family. That's one thing they did was take care of themselves. In terms of my hair, yes, I am a licensed cosmetologist. However, that has nothing to do with how I learned how to do my hair. And so while I'm sitting here and doing this quick updo ponytail and giving you a step-by-step for you to create it for yourself, let me tell you what happened where I had to learn how to do my hair. Of course, if you listen to my story, I grew up in a single parent home. My mother gave birth to me at 16. My father and her were married, but yet they never lived together. Once I turned about 1 or 2 years old, because my father was served in the military, any type of support that my mother got, once I got about 2, that support stopped. So my mother raised us on her own. When I got up to a certain age, I knew that I liked it to be cute. I liked it to have my hair done. I liked it to have my clothes put together. I liked it for my shoes to match my outfit. Make no mistake about it. But at the same time, I also knew that my mother could not afford to get my hair done. So back in the day, just like everybody else, I had me a good old Jerry curl. Don't be laughing at my Jerry curl. My hair was thick, it was pretty, and most people would tell me that it looked like my natural hair because it did, honey, it did. Well, when I came up out of the Jerry curl, my mother was not able to afford for me to do my own hair, or should I say, my mother was not able to afford for me to go get my hair done. And so, although by this time I was in high school, there was a beautician or a beauty salon that was not too far from my school that offered discounted prices or discounted rates to students. Now, if you had money, those discounted rates of about $40 or $50 every 2 weeks, that was very much reasonable. But when you are a struggling teenager with a job that only pays $3.50 an hour, and your mom is somebody that does not make a lot of money, that $50 every 2 weeks was hard to come by. So I learned how to do my own hair. By this time, updos was a thing, coifs hairstyles was a thing, French rolls was a thing, as well as wraps was a thing. And if you know anything about the lopsided salt and pepper hairstyles, I had one of those too. I even got to the point where I started to cut my own hair. I would have enough money to sometimes go to a beautician so they can do the initial style, and then once I saw them do the style, I would figure out how to do it myself. And this wasn't always pretty, and trust me, sometimes I walked out the house looking crazy, but eventually I got it, and eventually I learned how to do my own hair. Well, this eventually led me to doing other people's hair. And so once I started doing other people's hair, one day as I was in the military, by this time this was well past me being in the military, I had been in for several years. My mother made the suggestion to me. She said, Yasheka, why don't you go to college for beautician? The reason being was because I would do people's hair and they would try to undercut me in terms of my price, because she said they're only doing you like that because you don't have a license. And so that put me on a journey to go and get my license. And so that's how I got my beautician license. And that was the only reason that I got it, so that I can set prices and talk my shit so people wouldn't try to undercut me. Now, in terms of body care, one thing I learned over the years is that softness is not always about money. Softness is about discipline, it's about maintenance. Sometimes softness is deciding that no matter what life is doing around you, you will still take care of yourself. And this is something that I had to do right here. I had to make sure that I poured into myself even when it came to moisturizing my skin. And the reason being is because I recognize that the older I get, there are places in my body where my skin becomes a lot thinner. My elbows, my inner thighs, my knees, around my ankles, my neck, under my eyes. Those areas become thinner, and therefore, because it becomes thinner, it's more susceptible for scarring. And a lot of that scarring comes from not being properly hydrated. And so I afford myself time, no matter what goes on in a day, to make sure that I moisturize myself and pay attention to those areas that I know that are thinning, because those are also areas that's causing dark spots on my body, like in my inner thighs or even on my elbows. And that's why I make sure that I put turmeric oil on those areas so I can help with the lightening of the process, so that the dark spots won't stay. on my skincare routine. And if you are curious about all the products that I use on my face, check out my vlog on my channel where I talk about beauty should not be expensive. So when it comes to my skincare routine, I have a membership where I go once a month to make sure that I see an esthetician to keep my skin looking glowing. Now, if you look real closely, I have chicken pox marks, I have freckles, I have age spots, I have all the things that everyone else has on their skin. However, there are some things that are unavoidable, and these are some of them. The age spots, the freckles, those things are unavoidable. But what I can have effect over is how well my skin is hydrated. What I consume in a day, make sure that I'm staying away from the sugars and the fried foods and things like that, making sure that I'm consuming my water and making sure that I am taking the time out to really, really, really pour into myself in terms of taking care of my skin. Makeup for me has never been about hiding imperfections. It's about presentation, it's about artistry, it's about me showing that I care about myself and the way I present myself. It reminds me that I matter too. And so again, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So when I was a young soldier stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas back in 1992, I was 18, 19 years of age, and there was a girl there that was by the name of Sergeant Armstrong. Sergeant Armstrong was a very petite, brown-skinned woman, and she had her hair like in a bob hairstyle. She couldn't be no more than about 115, 120 pounds, and she was really bowling. But she was just the cutest thing. But the thing that I adored about Sergeant Armstrong is that no matter what, she always looked like she took out time for herself. When she would come to work, Sergeant Armstrong was the one that introduced me to Fashion Fair makeup. She would make sure that she put her Fashion Fair makeup on, just a little thin coat of something on her face. She would put a little lip gloss on, put a little mascara, and it looked like she took time out for herself because her uniforms would be starched, her hair would be taken care of, her hat on her head would be starched, her boots would be highly shined. And so for me, that made me decide that I wanted to learn how to do makeup for myself. And so that kind of put me down that thing of putting myself together. Now, another thing that kind of enhanced me doing makeup is, if you look really closely at my neck, back in November of 2013, I was in a really bad accident where I was almost taken from here. Well, I learned how to really blend and do makeup because the initial goal was to be able to cover the scar up so that it blended really, really good with my neck, because although I have been doing procedures to lighten up the scar, if you look really close at my neck, you can still see the scar. And so initially I was learning how to work with various colors of makeup and various shades of makeups like the reds and how to darken out spots, and I was learning from those things because I wanted to learn how to blend the scar on my neck. However, although it has been well over 14 or almost 14 years, there was only one time that I actually put makeup on my neck and cover it up, and this is when I was going to a ball, and the dress in which I had on was completely shouldered. It was all my shoulders was out, and because of the way that it was structured and I knew what I was going to be doing, I wanted to have a very flawless look that night, and so that is the only time that I've put any type of makeup on the scar.
Because your inner child has remained soft throughout this entire process, your purpose is to be free, is what I'm hearing. Like, that's what you're striving for.
Now, in terms of dressing, what a lot of people don't know about me is that sometimes I do suffer from social anxiety. It has nothing to do with the people. It's just me. I feel feels. And so because I feel feels, it's one of those things where I have to be comfortable in what I have on, because I don't need, it's like I have to make sure that I look good for me, because it's like I feel feels. And so because I feel feels, I want to always present myself in a way, because I know people are going to look at me, because people know, it's like people know I feel feels. I don't know what it is. However, when it comes to getting dressed, I like to put on my jewelry. I like to put on my fragrances, my dress. I don't get dressed like pretending like everything is perfect. I get dressed because literally it's expression about how I feel. There's nothing that I wear in particular. In other words, I can very well get a pair of shoes from Amazon as well as put on a Gucci belt or a Valentino belt, as in this picture, because it's one of those things where I like things. It doesn't have to be because it's expensive. It doesn't have to be because it is in this price range. It doesn't even have to be because it's on clearance. If it's something that I am attracted to, I am going to buy it, because my dress is literally part of my self-expression. And so the life lesson here is, yes, I understand what people mean, or when men specifically mean, when they say that a woman presents herself like she's a kept woman. But being kept doesn't always mean that you have to have somebody else taking care of you. Is it beautiful? Yes. Is it something that most people desire? Absolutely. But is it everyone's reality? Absolutely not. I think every woman should create her own version of a soft life. And no, that doesn't always require a man. It doesn't always require luxury. And it doesn't always require wealth. Sometimes it starts with learning how to care for yourself properly, learning how to maintain your appearance, your peace, your home, your mind, your body. Learning how to make yourself feel loved, even during difficult seasons. Because the truth is, the world responds differently to women who carry themselves with care. So yes, people may say I carry myself like a kept woman, but what they're really seeing is a woman who learned how to keep herself, a woman who learned how to pour softness into her own life, and a woman who refused to look like what she's been through. And honestly, this may be one of the greatest forms of self-love there is. Listen, I hope you enjoyed this. Please consider to join the neighborhood by liking, subscribing, and sharing this for anybody who you think want to hear something from a kept woman that keeps herself. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.